Hello and welcome to Real Estate Today. My name is Ed Cox and my co-host is Maria Bibicki, and we would like to welcome you to our show. We have a very timely show planned for you today because those of us who really care about our yards and we're probably thinking about getting them raked and getting them in shape for the upcoming season. I think Monday with the snow on the ground probably delayed some of us so that we might not have to start till in the May, which would be fine with me. But anyway, we do have a great guest for you that might help you get prepared for summer and your yard work. Maria, could you introduce our guest and get the show started?
Sure. Our guest today is Tim Huk of Rising Sun Landscaping. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we appreciate you coming, and we'd like to begin by asking you how you began your career.
Well, I started off when I was 18 doing tree work for a small local company, and started doing that for about 12 years, and then became really interested in the planting aspect and the health of the trees and the shrubs. And was at the Flower and Garden Show with my mom years ago and came across a table for NOFA, which is the Northeast Organic Farmers Association. And that's an organization that has got an organic land care program accreditation that they offer. And so I went down and took a week of classes, and you've got to pass a test, and it's pretty intensive, and just learned about an organic way to treat properties without using synthetic chemicals or pesticides, and really took to it. It's something I've always been interested in. I never used chemicals in the work that I did leading up to that, so it was just kind of a perfect fit to find them.
So that's pretty cool. You found your calling early on.
I guess so.
Yeah. So what other services do you offer?
Other than the organic lawn fertilization programs, our company, Rising Sun Landscaping, does mostly landscape design, pruning, mulching, some stone work, a little bit of fencing here and there. Mm-hmm. Really anything except for lawn mowing. There's plenty of local companies that do that. So we really focus on trying to create areas that you can enjoy.
We were thinking about having you on in the show in March, and I know that you were at a clinic or getting certified, and what happened there?
There's a guy, I would call him my mentor as far as organics go. His name's Chip Osborne, and he does training all over the country. He takes care of national parks all over the country, and I've gone up for years to his yearly training up in Mass, and this year they actually offered a test at the end of it where you can become accredited through him. And so I took the test after I went up to the training, and I'm proud to say that I passed it. They say that most people don't pass it the first time, so apparently I've been learning something over the years, and so pretty proud of that, and looking forward to using a lot of what I learned there, moving forward.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Sounds like quite an accomplishment.
So we'll get some good updated tips on our yards and stuff right now. Good.
Absolutely.
So Tim, the first question is, for me, my concern has always been I have a well at my house, and if I dump a bunch of stuff on the top and then the water gets there and sinks down, I end up thinking about it being in the well water. So I think also because I'm a little bit lazy is that I don't worry as much about my yard as a lot of other people. I would like it to look nice, but I'm not about to do a lot of this. So why should we go organic besides what I just said?
Okay. Well, there's a few main reasons people go organic. Kids and pets are kind of the big ones these days. There's a lot more research and information available. They've really come up with links these days between the pesticides that we're using on our lawns and issues with children, be it developmental, health reasons, links with certain cancers, especially with pets. You've got the kids and the pets who are out there rolling around on this grass all day. The dogs are going out there, and what do right off the bat? They start eating the grass. Can't tell you how many people that I'm working with who are calling saying, I had a dog who died of cancer. It's really startling. And so those are really the two main reasons that I'm finding people want to go organic. And another one is just the health of the planet and the environment.
So people seem to have a trend to want to be more earth-friendly in general.
Right. The chemicals that they're using, the process of making them is, it burns a lot of fossil fuels, and it goes down, it poisons waterways, eventually down to the ocean, and so people who are conscious about the environment, are really looking to make a change, a positive change.
I think I've read that some of the stuff that you put in your backyard ends up out in the ocean, and then you have tons of algae growth where you wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
And that's stopping the fish from
You've got
prospering.
these dead zones. Big one that a lot of people know about is down in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's all these huge industrial farms, and everything drains down into the Mississippi River and eventually down into the Gulf. And you get these giant algae blooms where there's no oxygen, and nothing can survive there anymore. So all of this stuff eventually does go, leads to the ocean.
So what is the first step you take if someone is interested in doing this?
The first thing you want to do is get a soil sample taken. It'd be just like going to the doctor and getting some blood work done. You want to see if there's any really, evident underlying cause. And the things that they test for in the soil samples are pH, your calcium and magnesium levels, the organic matter content, something called the cation exchange capacity. There's all these things that are part of an organic program that is really good to know that information before you go, so that you can make an educated decision when it comes to the inputs that you're going to be using. You wouldn't want to just put something in there for the sake of putting it in if it doesn't need it.
Right.
So the soil biology is very critical to the whole thing.
Yeah, it really is. Without the soil biology, you're not going to have an organic program. The main reason is because what we're doing, the inputs that we're using, you're not feeding the plant, you're feeding the soil biology, and that in turn is basically the byproduct of the soil biology eating this material. It makes things available to the plant. So things like the nitrogen, it's a matter of getting it to a plant usable form.
Well, when you were talking about that, as for me, when I bought my house 25 years ago, I had a really nice lawn in my backyard, but it was underneath an absolute tremendous canopy of trees. And I just slowly but surely, over the course of a couple of years, watched my lawn go away because I wasn't throwing a bunch of stuff down to make it grow. And I think the one piece of advice when we were preparing for the show was don't try to grow grass where it probably shouldn't have been and wouldn't grow on its own in the first place. Would that be true?
Yeah, exactly. You want to plant the right plant in the right place. And a super shady area underneath a bunch of trees is probably not the best area to try to grow a lawn. You've got the tree that's taking up all the available nutrients. You've got a heavily shaded area. You've got a bunch of roots that are right there at the surface from the trees. So sometimes, no matter how badly you might want a lawn in that area, it's just not the right place for it. Now, that being said, there are different kinds of grass seed. There's sun-loving grass seed and there's shade-loving grass seed. So we can definitely, give it the old college try and try to get it to grow. But there comes a certain point in time where you don't want to just keep throwing money away to try to get something to grow that's not going to grow there.
So in the situation you were just speaking about, if someone tried grass and it wasn't really going well in the shade, what are some alternatives that are low maintenance that will offer you a manicured look?
There's lots of ground covers out there these days that are going to do well. You could always change an area, and we find this often. When people say, "I can't grow grass," I can't grow grass, but we want it to look nice, so we'll establish a landscape bed there and plant shade-loving plants and put in some mulch and really dress it up. And it serves a few purposes. A, it makes it look great, and B, that layer of mulch between the woods and the yards is a pretty good deterrent for ticks. Mm-hmm. So, it's as opposed to going out there and spreading more chemicals, you've got an organic way to help try to control the tick population, because they live on those wood lines and they're really lazy and they won't cross a mulch bed. So that's one of the things that, through NOFA and whatnot, that you learn that there are organic ways to deal with these some of these things that we're dealing with these days.
We have on our list of why go organic. There's cultural practices, and what are those?
The biggest one is probably mowing. You don't want to mow your lawn too short. A lot of people, they want their golf course manicured looking lawn, and that's great. But the fact of the matter is, especially in the summertime, that if you leave your lawn longer than you normally would, what that's going to do is it's going to shade out the crabgrass seed, the weed seeds that want to grow. It's going to keep the soil temperature cooler, which is beneficial. As far as other cultural practices, irrigation, a lot of people overwater. They put their irrigation on every day and it goes off. That invites fungal problems. With an organic program, you want to water less frequently, but for a little bit longer, so you get that deep saturation. That encourages deeper root growth, which will in turn help you out in times of drought and stress, because that turf grass root, if it just gets watered every day, it's got no incentive to try to get down into the soil even more, so it just hangs out on the surface. And then if you mow it short and it's a 90-degree day, that plant really is going to have some issues surviving. So really the mowing and the watering are the two big cultural practices that we try to educate people why we should do these things.
The other one that comes to mind when we were just talking is that I've always kind of thought that I just got lazy and didn't mow my lawn in July and early August, but you say that the grass actually quiets their growth pattern then?
Yep. Up here in the Northeast, the way that the grass grows is that in the spring it grows, and then once it gets to be summertime, it actually starts going dormant, and then in the fall it starts growing again. So, we tell people quite often that you don't even need to mow your lawn from, late July and early August. You don't even have to mow it. As long as you can stand it up there at about 4 inches is really going to do a lot to shade out these weed seeds. So yeah, timing is critical on a lot of these things. You certainly wouldn't ever want to mow on a 90-degree day. That can do a lot of damage to the plant, and it has a hard time recovering. And when we're not using synthetic chemicals that are just going to make them perk right back up, it takes a little more work to get a system in place, and that's what we're really trying to do, is get that system going and get the lawn kind of taking care of itself.
So the question I had was, when you were talking about doing, the first thing you do is a soil test. So if you end up with a soil test, that'll help you decide what type of grass maybe to grow there, or what you need to do to get up.
One of the big things that's going to do is, first of all, with the pH, you really want to get up between 6.5 to 7. And most soils here in New England are low in pH just because of the makeup of the rock geology. So, and a lot of them are also really low in calcium. So you want to get your, one of the big things in organics is a calcium to magnesium ratio. You want that in order. You want your pH up there, so you'll see after the soil test, all right, I need some lime. So you'll come in and you'll use a certain kind of lime depending on the calcium to magnesium ratio. And it'll also tell you, again, what you have for organic matter content, which is another big thing, because the organic matter, it holds a lot more water than regular soil. It's got a ton of food for the microbes. It's got microbes itself. So, if you're really low in organic matter, you might want to think about doing something like a compost top dress to get that level up.
Now, when we met with you, it was so interesting and insightful, because I think that some people who have just only touched the surface with this kind of think that organic lawn care is about like milky spores and stuff like that, but
Yep.
it's much more.
Yeah, it's really grown a lot. Now that there's actually some research dollars going into it, they can find out what works and what doesn't. And milky spore was one of those things 10, 15 years ago, along with corn gluten, that were the darlings of the industry, and that's what you used. And those are very, the milky spore, for instance, is very temperature specific, so it's tough up here. for it to really work for you. And the corn gluten, what they found was, that was used for crabgrass prevention. The levels at which you have to use that to prevent the crabgrass, you're putting down so much nitrogen, because it's a nitrogen source, that you're doing more harm than good. So now that, we've, in the organic industry, now that we have a couple of decades under our belt, we actually know what works, what doesn't work, and it's really all about getting that system in place and getting things to work so you have less inputs over time.
And I think when you were talking about getting the system going, you were saying that it's sometimes a couple-year process.
Yep. Yeah, they usually say that it's about a 3-year transition period, and be that coming from a synthetically maintained yard or just organic by default where you did nothing. It takes a few years to get that system into place. And but after that, you can really revisit it and decide, okay, do I need to keep adding this, or do we already have enough of this soil biology population in place? One of the other great things about going organics is you get nutrient cycling, and what happens then is that all of the soil biology that's working together will actually produce enough nitrogen on its own, for instance, that you don't have to come in and add so much, to get the same benefit as before. So it might be a little more expensive to begin with, but then once the system gets going, there's less inputs. Again, you're using less water over time. Aeration and overseeding is something that's important right off the bat. Once again you get a good earthworm population in there, those are naturally aerating, so you don't have to do these things every year. Whereas at the beginning, if you really want a system to work, you can't really just go at it halfway and expect it to work. You kind of got to make the decision. I'm going to go organic and I want a decent lawn. Doesn't mean you have to get the top of the line program, but client expectations. If you just want some grass to grow but you don't mind a few weeds, then that's fine. There's a program available for you. So the inputs that you put in are going to kind of correlate to how successful your program is. Those first few years especially.
Now
We haven't even talked about it before, but what's up with dandelions?
Boy, well, the pretty yellow flowers, people pay you to get rid of them.
Yeah,
and
I
they
know.
pay you to plant some more. Most weeds are actually an indicator of underlying soil problems. And so a lot of it is compaction. And then with dandelions, it's a result of low calcium. So you've got to keep getting those calcium levels up again. Like we said, up here in New England, it's kind of a low calcium soils to begin with. So dandelions are definitely tough, no denying it. But just like with any weeds with an organic program, the best weed control is a thick, healthy lawn. And what that's going to do is that's going to crowd out any of the other weeds. And eventually we wind up with less and less weed pressure. After a few years, we started a couple of lawns a few years ago that had maybe 70-75% crabgrass. And by fall of year 3, you can't find any crabgrass anywhere, and that's without using a drop of any sort of pesticide or weed killer or anything. It's just a matter of getting that healthy turfgrass system in place, and that's what wants to grow there, and that's really the core of the organic program, is getting a healthy system in place where grass wants to grow.
Cool.
Now you had mentioned aeration. What is the difference between aeration and thatching?
Aeration, we do core aeration, which kind of pulls out little plugs out of the ground. Dethatching is, well, here's the thing with thatch. A lot of people in the spring, they think they need to have their lawn dethatched. It's really nothing but dormant dead grass from the winter time, and most of the time it will green up on its own. Thatch is an indication of a lack of soil biology. So in an organic program, some of the stuff that we use, they're called saprophytes, which are thatch feeders. So you wind up not having these issues. Like I said, thatch being the result of no soil biology. So you don't have those problems. Also, if you were to come in and dethatch in the spring, which a lot of people do, that damages the root crown, which is the crown of the plant, which is very, very tender and where all growth originates. So if you go and do that in the spring, you're going to damage the plant. And also, if you're taking away all of this dead organic matter that's food for the soil microbes, you're doing a disservice. And at the same time, doing that, you're exposing a whole bunch more just dirt, which if you don't overseed, is a bed for all of these weed seeds that are going around. So the one time that you might need to dethatch is in late summer. Kentucky bluegrass is a naturally heavy thatcher because of the way that it grows. It grows by rhizomes right underneath the soil, roots growing right underneath the surface of the soil. And so that can cause a thatch buildup. But again, once you have that good population of soil biology with those saprophytes that literally eat it, you don't have that problem. And while we're speaking about thatch, a lot of people think thatch is caused by grass clippings left, when after your lawn is mowed, and that is not true at all. That once you have that soil biology again, those grass clippings are gone within a couple of days. They start working on it immediately. So yeah, we just want to confirm that thatch is not caused by leaving grass clippings on your lawn, and leaving those grass clippings on your lawn actually returns up to a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year. And that may not sound like a lot, but for a high quality lawn, 3 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per year is a good benchmark. So you're getting a third of your nitrogen just from leaving your clippings on the lawn.
So I don't have to rake my yard after I mow it.
It's good the first time of the year that you cut your lawn, you want to get rid of the clippings in case anything has overwintered. But after that, you're really doing, benefiting by leaving it on there.
So can you save me another step and tell me I don't have to rake my yard?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's true too?
Yep.
Oh, well, I didn't think you were going to say
Yeah.
so that.
No, and also, while we're speaking of clippings still, with an organic program, you have more measured, slower growth as opposed to synthetic chemicals where you get just super fast growth on the plant. And so, say you go a week or 10 days without mowing with a synthetic system, you're going to have a lot more grass clippings than if you go a week or 10 days with an organic program where it's just a much more slower measured growth over time.
Now, when we met prior to the show, you told us approximately when our obsession started with lawn care.
Yeah, and I guess it's very appropriate with this weekend.
Yeah.
The first time that the Masters was televised in color, everybody said, "I want that in my yard," and that's kind of what's known as the beginning of the traditional lawn care industry, where everybody said, "I want the golf course look in my front yard." What they don't tell you is that down there at Augusta, nobody plays on that course except for the Masters, and then for about a month afterwards, and then the whole rest of the year, it's getting that course ready to be on television in April.
So was that in the 60s?
Yeah, and I think it was 1967.
Is when my uncle got his first color TV, and
Yep. So. Probably went out to the store and got a bag of nitrogen and put it down, and then put down another bag, not green enough.
Well, that does sound like certainly a turning point in tire, because before then you couldn't see it on TV. So
Yep.
that's interesting.
Now, how about clover? Because we spoke about clover as well.
Yep, clover was part of every single grass seed mixture, all going up until about the 50s, and then, without getting too much into it, there was a lot of chemicals left over after World War II, and they needed a place to get rid of them, and started saying that clover was a weed, and we needed to get rid of clover in our lawns, and and here's this weed killer that's going to do it for you. But what we know about clover is that it's one of the only plants that it can actually fix nitrogen from the air. So it's very, very valuable to have some clover in your lawn. So much so that there's actually, it's called low grow clover that they're coming out with these days. So you get the benefits of the nitrogen fixing, but it stays low, so it doesn't really show up in the lawns as much. But it is it's very beneficial for any lawn system. You know, nobody wants giant patches of it, and you know, I understand that. But a little bit of clover here and there,
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing, and it stays green all year.
Now, as our show winds down to a close, what would you like our viewers to know? What's some advice you'd like to share in particular?
You know, not only is are organics, you know, the right thing to do if you've got children or pets or you're concerned about the environment. Really, when it boils down to it, is it's the best way to grow turf grass. You know, you're really just kind of emphasizing the system that's already in place. All of this soil biology has been around for, you know, as long as the planet's been around, and you know, unfortunately, you know, the pesticides don't know what's a pest and what's beneficial. So, you know, all of these things have been wiped out, and so you're kind of stuck in this cycle of having to use chemicals to get yourself a lawn that you can be proud of. And now that we know all that we know, you know, it's really just a matter of repopulating that soil biology and feeding that soil biology so that that in return is what feeds the turfgrass plant. And that turfgrass, you know, down through the root, it's sending out all sorts of exudates. It in turn is feeding all of these things that are feeding it. So it's very symbiotic. You know, there's no unnecessary waste. Anything that's waste is being used by the plants or by the soil microorganisms. So it really is just, you know, not only the best thing for the planet and kids and pets and people and water, it's the best way to grow turf grass.
And we're getting close to the end of the time here. You're going to be at Fleming Farm. There's a big
There's an
organic-
Earth Day celebration at Fleming Farm in Simsbury, home of the backwards egg sign, on April 23rd from 10 to 3. And I had a table there last year, and I'll have another one there this year, and be available to answer any questions that people might have about organics.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know this is your busy season, and we feel really special that you came out and came to the show and, you know, told us all about what you do. And I hope you have a good turnout.
All right, yeah.
For Earth Day. And thank you very much.
And I'm not going to rake my leaves.
Just make sure you mow them.
Okay, I will do that.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to us speak about organic gardening today, organic lawn care. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.